Did you hear that last week, mysteriously, hundreds of mountain lions have been leaving Yellowstone National Park, headed south to Salt Lake City, Utah? And it's baffling the scientific experts of like, why would they be leaving all of a sudden? We've never seen this behavioral edge amongst the mountain lion populancers in any locale, in any state or geography. And it's not just one or two or three of them that are leaving. There's hundreds, and you can see these three just walking on the road south there towards Salt Lake City, Utah. There is a religious fellow there, a pastor named Tucker Tucketts, that's from the region, and he's saying, hey, this has been prophesied. This is a religious thing about lions leaving and gathering in the last days of the earth. And others are saying, no, it's not religious. It's just some creature critters sometimes feel compelled to regather, and so they might just be going to new territory to find new food. But I'm curious what you think of this all. It's just super mysterious. The grizzly bear populancers started leaving Yellowstone National Park this morning, and it is throwing the scientific community into a tizzy, wondering why they are leaving. Grizzly bears are not known to travel in herds like this all at once and great distances, and they are headed towards Salt Lake City, Utah. I reported earlier this week about the mountain lions that left Yellowstone. That was late last week that they started leaving, and they thought, okay, it's just the mountain lions. Why are they leaving? And now that the grizzly bears are all leaving, they are saying something is up. The animalages, creature critters, know something that maybe we don't. But it just goes to show you that nature is the great balancer. Yellowstone National Park are super concerned. They think that the bison might leave next. So they've hired a Dr. Remy Deemy to come in and investigate and try to figure out what's going on. No one can speak animal, right? But he is one of the closest that can understand what's going on by just sensing it from the animals. And so I'll report in part two as soon as I talk to Dr. Remy Deemy and he tells me what he believes is going on. Did you hear the latest news coming out of Yellowstone National Park just this morning? All the bison buffaloes started leaving, a mass exodus from the park. And it's not just like one clan, it's the entire populancer of the bison buffaloes. You got woman buffalo, male buffalo, man buffalo, and baby buffaloes. It's all of them. And it's baffling the scientific community. We know last week the mountain lions and the grizzly bear populancers left in their entirety, headed to Salt Lake City, Utah. And then a few days ago, the elk started leaving. And the scientists are saying, why are all these creature critters fleeing Yellowstone? And they can't quite get to the bottom of it. I called my cousin who works at PetSmart in the fish section. I said, what do we know about buffalo bisons and what's going on here? And she said, one, they're really big and they can be dangerous, which I thought was super neat, to be respectful of nature edge. And second, she said there used to be a lot more of them across the U.S., but then the colonizer populancers came and decimated them, which is quite sad. They said this one's too old, so it's staying behind. It actually jumped into the Old Faithful geyser and died of a fatality death, and they think that it just, because it realizes it's too old to make the journey down to Salt Lake. But I don't know. It's super mysterious. What do you think of all this? What do you make of it? What do you think is happening? Why do you think these animalages are fleeing Yellowstone National Park?
All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving our praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakha Kodash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. And today, I just want to do a quick lesson on pretty much, these various animals, that have been migrating out of Yellowstone National Park, because things like this, especially in this current time that we're living in, this isn't a coincidence, So I'm just going to bring out a couple of scriptures, bring out a little bit of information. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying and straight to the point. And the first video that I came across was, I want to say last night, if not a couple of days ago, where you had this individual pretty much, highlight that mountain lions were leaving Yellowstone, and it weren't just a few of them, the whole population of mountain lions, that were in Yellowstone were leaving and headed towards, Salt Lake City, Utah, and then the very next day, or I want to say, yesterday, you had grizzly bears, yet again in Yellowstone, migrating, because again, bears aren't known for migrating in large numbers, as this individual said. But again, all of the bears in Yellowstone are now leaving, and again headed towards Salt Lake City. And excuse me, tonight, I just came across, again, this is the same individual. Now the buffaloes, or the bison, whichever you want to call them, but the bisons are now leaving Yellowstone, man. So again, you have these various animals that are leaving this particular area. And usually when animals leave a particular area in large numbers like that, usually something is going to happen. And just from I'm not saying this is fact, just from speculation, the volcano that's in Yellowstone could erupt. If not that, it could be something to do with the weather, or if not that, the Lord, ultimately, the Lord, he's about to bring something, something major is about to take place, whether in that, particular place, or, in America in general. But again, man, that's very interesting, and it should also be concerning, because who knows what animals are going to leave next. I personally believe, again, this is not fact, but I believe that, the wolves may leave Yellowstone, and they just reintroduced wolves back into Yellowstone not too long ago. I have to look up, when exactly, what year exactly they brought the wolves back into Yellowstone National Park. But again, if we're seeing more and more animals leave this place, then again, something is on the horizon, So I went to ChatGPT, and I put in animals migrating mysteriously, right? So it says animals migrating mysteriously has fascinated humans for centuries. These events often occur suddenly in large groups, and sometimes without clear environmental triggers, which fuels curiosity and speculation, right? So it gives the list of animals, which I'm not going to read every single detail, but there is some good information that I'm going to get to further down. So it says whales, elephants, amphibians, insects, just to name a few of the animals that, just leave in large number, right? And this is one of the main points I want to get. It says pre-disaster migration or panic. Some animals flee or migrate just before earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and is not a volcano in Yellowstone National Park. It says tsunamis. Theories include sensing vibrations humans can't feel, detecting gas emissions like radon, hearing infrasonic or ultrasonic cues, right? And then, of course, I went down and put in pre-disaster, right? Because this is specifically what I wanted. It says, when it comes to pre-disaster animal behavior, there are countless stories, ancient and modern, of animals seeming to know that something terrible is about to happen. These behaviors often happen hours or even days before earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, and severe storms. Scientists take this seriously enough to study it, though much of it is still remains unexplained. And then it goes into, the various incidents that have taken place where animals have migrated, right? So I'm not going to read, the exact details, but in 2004, a tsunami took place in the Indian Ocean, and it hit Indonesia, Sri Lanka, and Thailand. It says in 1975, an earthquake hit China. 1976, another earthquake hit China. And in 2011, the tsunami, that took place in Japan, right? And this is what I wanted right here. It says scientific theories on animal disaster sensing, right? So it says vibrations, animals feel P waves, fast pressure waves from quakes that humans can sense. Infrasound, animals can detect low frequency sound from earthquakes or volcanic rumbles. Electromagnetic changes, shift in Earth's magnetic or electric field before quakes, might be detected by sensitive animals like birds or sharks. Gas emissions, gases like radon or ozone released before quakes might affect breathing or smell. Behavioral memory, herd animals and elephants may migrate away from danger based on generational memory or past disasters, right? And it says which animals are most sensitive: elephants, infrasound, ground vibrations; dogs, hearing, smell, anxiety cues; cats, sensitive to environment changes; birds, magnetoreception, pressure changes; fish and amphibians, water pressure and chemical changes; horses and livestock, panic before quakes, vocalizations, right? And then again, it says indigenous wisdom and folklore, so pretty much get what they believed. It says many indigenous cultures from the Pacific Islands to Africa have long believed that animals serve as early warning signs of nature's wrath, which is really the Lord's wrath. And again, this is true. Animals do serve as warning signs that something is going to happen, right? It says they watch bird migration patterns, dog and horse relentlessness, snake and insect behavior. The traditional ecological knowledge often proves accurate, even if modern science can't fully explain it. And indeed, man, modern science can explain why these particular animals are leaving Yellowstone. So again, just me personally, I believe that something may happen because again, there is a volcano in Yellowstone, so that volcano may erupt. If it's not that, something else may happen. We'll just have to wait and see. But again, this should be concerning and alarming that these various animals are leaving Yellowstone, because you have mountain lions first, you had grizzly bears, now you have the buffaloes that are leaving. What animals are going to leave next is the question, and why, So I'm just going to grab a couple scriptures, man, because again, like this just goes to show you that we're in the last days, man, and things like this are not a coincidence, and this is not for, no reason at all. These animals sense that something is going to take place, and they're getting out of that particular environment before danger, strikes, right, or before disaster happens. So I'm going to get the book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 5 and verse 8. And it says, there shall be a confusion also in many places, and the fire shall be off sent out again, and the wild beasts shall change their places, and menstruous women shall bring forth monsters. And right, the main point in this verse is that the wild beasts shall change their places, and we're seeing it, take place out there in Yellowstone, man. Mountain lions, grizzly bears, and these bisons are changing their places. Why? Because again, disaster is on the way. Whether it's in Yellowstone or somewhere in that region, something major is about to take place. And those animals are getting out of the way, before the Lord pours out whatever particular judgment that he is about to do, And that's the point of this verse, that again, the wild beasts are going to change their places. Because as we know, in the midst of Jacob's trouble, this is going to be a common thing where you're going to have, animals are going to be in these cities, man. Animals that wouldn't normally be in the city. So let's just say right now, use a lion, for example. Like you have a lot of cities that have zoos. Like out here we have the Detroit Zoo, which is not a Detroit, it's in Royal Oak. But the point is, once all hell breaks loose and those animals get out, and these animals get out, man, you're going to see animals, first and foremost, that aren't native to America, that don't belong in this particular environment. Because again, these particular predatory animals, that hunt prey, I'll just say deer, because again, we have deer here in Detroit. You'll see deers in the hood, and I know particular areas where they be, or it's lucky where they are, it's like, it's lucky for the grammar. But I know particular places where they dwell, in these particular neighborhoods. But again, if you have deers in these neighborhoods, how much more when the predators that hunt them, make their way into these neighborhoods and start attacking people, you know? And this is a real thing, and you people just don't understand it's about to get very serious out here, right? But again, the Lord's elect are going to be just fine, right? So I'm going to get the book of Job, chapter 5, and verse 23. It says, "For thou shalt be in league with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field should be at peace with thee." So, right, man, the Lord's elect, the beasts of the field, the animals are going to be at peace with them. They aren't going to harm them. Hell, they may even protect the elect, because I was just listening to, the Elder Demashapat's video. Earlier he was mentioning this, man, and it's true. This may be the case for some of the elect. The animals may protect them, from certain situations, but overall, the beasts are going to be at peace with the elect. Meanwhile, all of these other people are out here getting messed up, So again, I closed the Apocrypha. Let me go back, man, because again, this is about to become extremely serious, man, out here. So I'm going to get Sirach 39 and start at 28. The main point I want to get is in 30, but still, this is Sirach 39 and 28. It says, "There be spirits that are created for vengeance, which in their fury lay on sore strokes. In the time of their destruction, they pour out their force and appease the wrath of him that made them." So, right, man, these particular spirits, that the Lord has out here that are going to inflict judgment, when their time has come, right? Continuing on, it says, "Fire and hell and famine and death, all these were created for vengeance." And this is the main point I want to get. "Teeth of wild beasts and scorpions and serpents and the sword punishing the wicked to destruction." So, right, the main point I want to get is teeth of wild beasts. The animals are going to be out here attacking people, during Jacob's trouble, because once all hell breaks loose, it's hell. The rule is going to be the rule of the jungle, man. Only the strong survive, but only we know that only the elect are going to survive. But again, man, a lot of people are going to get attacked by these animals out here, Verse 31, it says, "They shall rejoice in his commandment, and they shall be ready upon earth when need is, and when their time is come, they shall not transgress his words." So, right, man, these particular spirits that the Lord has out here, waiting to, afflict judgment, they're not going to transgress his word. They're going to carry out his commandment, and this is the time that we're in. So again, man, you Americans out there, understand you should be paying attention to these type of things, man, because again, these particular animals leaving that area should be concerning. It should be alarming. Why are these animals leaving, man? Which I've seen a couple of videos, certain people are acknowledging it, but do you think the mass majority of people here in America are paying attention to that? No, they're oblivious to it, which is why a lot of people are going to get caught off guard. So I'm going to end it with this. This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 15, and I'm going to start at verse 1. And it says, "Then said the Lord unto me, though Moses and Samuel stood before me, yet my mind could not be toward this people. Cast them out of my sight and let them go forth," meaning, the prophets, because our people, is primarily talking about, these Israelites, these wicked Israelites, man. Right now they have the prophets out here to give them the warning, of the things that are about to come, but they're not taking heed. Excuse me. So what is the Lord going to, say, right? Or what is the Lord going to have us tell them? Verse 2, it says, "And it shall come to pass, if they say unto thee, whither shall we go forth? Then thou shalt tell them, Thus saith the Lord, such as are for death to death, and such as are for the sword to the sword, and such as are for the famine to the famine, and such as are for the captivity to the captivity." So, right, man, just in a roundabout way, anyone that comes up and asks us what, should they do, primarily our people, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, that pretty much bullshitted, while the men of the Lord was still out here, while these videos are still going out, and you didn't take heed to it. We're just going to tell you you're going to die. That's the only thing we're going to be able to tell you. We're not going to open up our scriptures in the midst of all hell breaking loose to sit and teach you. No, we're doing that now. But again, just me personally, I'm telling you wicked niggas now before it even happens. I told you. We told you. Starting with the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. We told you. And you didn't listen. Verse 3. It says, and I will appoint over them 4 kinds, saith the Lord, the sword to slay, and the dogs to tear, and the fowls of heaven, and the fowls of the heaven, and the beasts of the earth to devour and destroy. And right, man, that's the main point I wanted to get. The Lord is going to have these animals attack, these wicked individuals out here, especially you wicked Israelites, man, because again, the Lord is tired of you. Right now, you're misusing these prophets, you're abusing them, and then when that time comes, once our hell breaks loose, you're going to try to kill us. You're going to seek to take our lives because we're doing the work of the Lord, because we're standing up for what's right, But again, this is going to be the judgment for a lot of you. These beasts are going to tear you limb from limb, So that's it for this one. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Baha Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Baha Hashem, Rakakwadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till next time I say Shalom.